Oh, welcome, friends. I always wonder if when people sign on to the recording, they see all of us fixing our hair, right before we go on live. They gotta wonder.
Yeah, I have a lot to fix here.
You look good, Steve. No, it looks good. Looks good.
Oh, thank you. You're
So
very
welcome,
kind.
my friends. We are in the middle of our Lenten journey, and hopefully you've been with us for the last couple nights where we are talking about saints as people the light shines through, and not only how people have been saints to us, right, who they have shown their light onto our lives and changed our lives, but we're also asking you all through Lent, how can you be a person who shines light into others? All right, and that's kind of our homework time. Last week Cheryl was fabulous and introduced us to her personal saint as we talked about Saint Charisma. And next week, Ken is going to be introducing us to one of his personal saints as we talk about saints of courage. So I encourage you to come back to stay in that Lenten energy. And actually, let me go ahead and share our screen here a little bit. I'm just going to pop through since most of you have been with us. But again, it's great to see all your faces. It's great that you've got your video on. So we're kind of in a room chatting tonight. And if you're not sure if we have your email address or not, you can pop that into the chat room. We'll be sure to put you into our database. And that way we will make sure you get one email a week. And that really tells you what happened at Sanctuary last week, what's happening in the near future, so you can stay up to date. And regarding contacting us, we have a text feature. So if you never remember what day is Tuesday, put your number in the chat, your cell phone, and Barb will send you a gorgeous little reminder text saying, hey, it's Tuesday, and tonight we're talking about BossyPants. You can all reach us through our Facebook page. That's where we put our links to our presentations and our evenings, as well as you can always email us at talktous@sanctuaryinthewoods.com. And here it is. This is kind of our Lenten journey this month, kind of month and a half. So as I said, last week was Saints of Charisma with Cheryl. Tonight is the book club where we're going to chat about Tina Fey's BossyPants. Next week is Saints of Courage. Lent 5, April 5th. We're going to be asking you to bring in stories and photographs of people who have been saints in your lives. So that's a little hint to get ready for that. Some gorgeous pictures and stories. We're looking forward to that. And also, if you can see behind me, that's what Seder at Sanctuary looks like in preparation. We have our Sanctuary Haggadah, and we prepare to have the meal. This year, we will be having Sanctuary Seder virtually, hopefully with all of you. So you can sign in on April 12th. We'll send you a little bit of extra information. So if you want to prepare the meal at your house, you can do that. Also, we'll send you out our Sanctuary Haggadah because it's a big script. The whole evening is a scripted journey, and we'll be able to send you that so you can read along as you go. And tonight, March 22nd, we're about to talk about BossyPants. Cheryl, I'm going to give this all over to you. And I just want to remind you, though, how cool is this, that next month, we already have our book chosen because you all chose 2 last month. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I'll leave that for you. I think these 2 books are very different. So 3 months really of very different books. And I look forward to your conversation. Cheryl, they are all yours.
Thank you, Joby. All right. Steve Peters, is this something you wanted to get into? BossyPants? I don't know your thing. Okay, here's what I want to ask first. Go to your reactions down here, and if you read the book, do a clap hand. And if you listen to the book, put up a red heart or a heart if you have it. Do you know where those reactions are? Oh, Linda, listen. Ken read. Just trying to see how many people listen. And
I don't know where. I don't have that.
You don't have that ability? Well,
Where is
yours, Kevin? You didn't participate.
Sorry, Professor,
All right.
I did not participate in the homework.
Bud, all right, just tell me, Bud, did you read it or did you listen to it?
I read it.
Okay. So we've got about half and half, right?
Shit.
Kristen, did you say, oh, you didn't read it or listen to it yet, right? Yeah.
I-
All right.
I read it and I was,
What?
I was gonna say, I read it and also I listened to the audio tape.
Okay, so you've done both. Okay, good. All
I'm
right.
getting double back body video or audio. Am I the only one that's getting that?
I don't,
I was, but it just went away when you spoke, Glenda. I
Yeah.
didn't get it
What
on
can I
you.
tell you?
You
I
fixed
think
it,
Joe-
Brenda.
Joey fixed it. Yeah. Yeah, Joey and I are in the same house, so we have both of it. So what do you think is better? You think it was better to listen to it? It's people who listen to it. What was your response to the book?
I listened to 3 chapters and fell asleep each time, so I went to reading,
Oh, you did?
and then I sped read through it. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't do audio well, but that's just me. Others will be different.
Yeah. What about
I'm
somebody
the
else who
opposite.
listened to it?
I did. I'm the opposite. I fall asleep if I read it with my eyes. So I can listen to it all night long. I thought that it was truly her. I mean, it has appeared that she is who she is. I mean, who she portrays to be. If that was a picture of her life and her experiences and the way that she presents things, then she is true to nature. What you get is what you see, or what you see
Okay,
is what
and
you
what you
get.
hear.
I think is the other way.
What you hear is what you get.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Good. What about
Also,
folks who read? Okay, go ahead, Glenda.
sorry, I was just gonna say, I also listened and I was really glad that I did because her audio injected the key humor in each of the cases. And I think I would have missed that had I not been listening to her voice telling her own story. I also thought that the way she gathered each of the stories was great fun as well. She started off with something you didn't know where she was going with it, but ultimately she'd pull all the threads together and bam, you got it. So that was fun. It was fun.
Okay, cool.
Who's-
What about folks who read it?
Oh. I did.
Yeah. What did you think? You read it and listened to it, Rose. So maybe you're a
Yeah.
good person to.
Oh, yeah,
What was the difference to you?
yeah, I had a book club a few years ago and we discussed it. And I'm a big fan of comedy. I just love comedy. And to tell you the truth, I really love this book. Her experiences, her thoughts on things. She all the drama you want. So easy, but comedy is a lot harder. But I have a lot of respect for her because I think she is authentic, is her personality. But the fact that she was the first head writer at Saturday Night Live was amazing.
Yeah, the first female head writer, right? Yeah, yeah, it is. Cool.
And what Glenda said about the audio, oh my God, she can do these voices so well and it adds to the humor. But even just the print, it comes across. So, all right.
Okay, cool. Anybody who read it and wish now, hearing this, that they had listened to
I
it?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read, I think the first part I laughed out loud just about every other page, but the second half of the book, not so much. I guess she was
Why do you think that is,
explaining,
Bud?
well, she was, I guess she was getting into Saturday Night Live and all this specifics and techniques and what they had to do. And it just kind of kind of bored me. But
Mm.
the first part, I laughed my ass off,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, that's a good thing to talk about. What do you guys think? Let's each share one thing that made you laugh out loud. What was that?
So many.
Well, for me, it was the way that her mom shared the maturing female body.
It was good.
Yeah. Give us a little detail so we can laugh again. Come on.
Okay,
Brenda.
okay, well, it all came in a box. And there was a box of sanitary napkins, and there was a brochure, and it all came in a box. And so her mom kind of pushed the package at her and said, "This is what you use, and read the book."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're done now. Okay.
Was that a reflection of what you got too, Glenda, or what?
Oh, I didn't even get that much.
Oh.
I got no box.
No, true.
You got no box? That's amazing, bud. Anybody else? What else was a funny thing?
I was gonna say the characters when she worked at the YMCA, the guy like, "Don't you know who I am, damn it," and just those characters were just hilarious for me. And I was just gonna say with Glenda, that Modus box with all the sanitary stuff in there was a pamphlet that says how to tell your daughter, about, periods and all that. And, her mom just walked out the door and Tina just looked at it and goes, "I'm pretty sure my mom is supposed to read this," but she had to do it on her own. So,
yeah. What else? What's another different story?
I liked all the stories where she laughed at herself.
Can you give us an example?
Well, that was one of them, but let's see specifically. Oh, when she was trying to portray Sarah Palin, there was a lot of that she really laughed at herself about. And of course, I thought she did a perfect job on that. But she had a lot of funny things to say about how she reacted to it.
Yeah. I was particularly, being from Texas, it made me laugh too when she was talking about, the woman's body, and she says, about the only thing I can remember about it is that that the insides are set up to look a lot like the Texas Longhorn logo.
Yeah,
It looks kind of like that. That was hilarious. And when I thought about it, I said, it's kind of true, really. So anyway, that was a funny part to me. Anybody else?
Yeah, when she's responding to those trolls on the chapter called Dear Internet, and she's responding to the trolls. Tina Fey is an ugly, pear-shaped, bitchy, overrated troll. And she responds to this troll. It says, "First, let me say how inspiring it is that you learned the computer. I hate for our correspondence to be confrontational, but you have offended me deeply. To say I'm an overrated troll when you have never seen me guard a bridge is particularly unfair." And then she goes on, "As far as being an ugly, pear-shaped, and bitchy, well, I prefer the terms offbeat, business class ass, and exhausted."
Yeah. So she found a way to take those things and turn them around and be kind of funny about them. Yeah, that was good. All right. Anybody else? So what's the thing you like the most about Tina in this book and how she portrayed things?
I liked how understated her connections were. I mean, she was the head writer, but how she brought in and how she had relationships with, like, I had no idea that Alex Baldwin and her were that close. I mean, she was writing for them, or that Jimmy Fallon and her were that close, or that Seth Meyers and her were that close. And she stayed in the back, but she put them at the front. And I just thought all those connections that she wrote for in Saturday Night Live were amazing. So that was what impressed me most about the book. I journaled through the early parts of her childhood because there were lots of similarities in the 60s, things that brought to my memory. But I just love the way those connections were built and that they've stayed. They're all good friends to this day.
Jane Ann, tell us something about your in the 60s about you. Come on, share something.
You know, she you know, and I laughed, that was my laughter piece. You know, the black and white, I had to return the book to the library, so I don't have it with me, but remember the black and white picture she had of her bangs and how she had her haircut. And I think I was going into grade 9, and my mom insisted on cutting my bangs. Like, they were right up to here, like, it was unbelievable. And, but I think the haircuts in that day looked like that. And then I had a girlfriend perm my hair. And if you see it, it's bone straight. So when it grew out like Bozo the Clown, right? Because it was out to here. And then as it grew straight, anyway, the way she described getting her hair cut and that haircut and how it framed her face and how the bangs were so short. I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed for a good 15, 20 minutes nonstop. And the pad story was very similar, except that my babysitter was a cheerleader in high school, and got pregnant in high school and ended up having a deaf child. And that was how I found out she had to A, stop being my babysitter, and B, that if I was gonna have sex out of marriage, I was going to have something go wrong, and that I better be careful because I would otherwise shame the family. So that was my introduction. And to this day, well, not now, my mother's dead, but when I became a cheerleader in high school, guess whose uniform I got? Because all the cheerleaders would embroider their initials into the back of the uniform. It was a sailor uniform. And mine was Elaine Pryor, and that was my babysitter. So
wow.
It was amazing. It was an amazing aha moment in grade 11 for me. But that's what all of that brought back, was all those stories.
Yeah.
So, loved it.
Yeah,
But loved
cool.
because I love all the people that she wrote for. I like their personalities. And in so many ways, she shaped them in terms of what they are today in their own shows. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's true. She did do a lot of that, didn't she? Yeah, just as a writer. It's amazing the things that you can do in the background like that, right? Yeah.
I think somebody.
Yeah, until she got, go ahead.
I was just going to say, somebody spoke a minute ago about her humility. And I think that's the thing that rung true for me throughout the whole book, and still does. Human being, and I think somebody that is that humble gives gifts to people, like all of those men that she got to stand tall on the stage because she was willing to give everything, and she did, and they have prospered ever since.
So she was really.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it makes entire sense now that Alex Baldwin got asked back to do the president, right? Because he'd been, like, it just all made sense. Like, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was all coming around full circle.
When you read the stuff about Alex Baldwin, did you guys get any tinglings from the stuff that's gone on recently about the shooting on the set with him? Did that bring it up for you at all? I mean, that was the first thing I thought of when I saw his name in there again, you know?
Yeah, I certainly thought of it when I went through that part of the book, but it didn't put any shadows on because I think they'll prove that he didn't get the right counsel on the set. So
Yeah. Well, and that was a lot earlier than that happened, right? So this was all before any of that. So, yeah, but he was quite a hero, at least in her book. Yes. Yeah. Well, what did you think about, what did you learn that really about the comedy business? Rose, you kind of might know something about it because you're very into it, but what do you guys learn?
I guess the thing is, you had mentioned like when you're writing and stuff, some stuff is going to be good and some stuff isn't. And I guess for me, it seems like she came from like middle class. Her parents weren't movie stars or anything like that. But she just kept plugging away, writing, and that's how you succeed. Yeah, and she knew the right people. She must have been a person who can work well with, and so she had those connections. But yeah, with writing, I read something that Amy Poehler had said about writing comedy, and she said, just do it and also read it out loud. Yeah, so I've tried to write a few things myself, but I don't know. Yeah, but I'm in awe of her ability to write, to put humor into some of the everyday things.
Yeah. Well, and she started, riding a bus around all the time, going to various places, right? With a crew that, that when you got good, you got to stay home. But until then, you had to ride around with all of these people, right? And do little performances. And some of them worked and some of them didn't work. It depended on what was going on, huh? Yeah.
I think it's a really hard gig. I mean, Rose speaks of the persistence just to keep going and going and going. And I mean, she did experience a ton of backlash and being the only woman. And like, she really, I think handled it well, but just to keep going. And I don't know what it would be like to stand in front of people night after night and not get laughs. Like, she always was afraid that she was getting called in or called up on the carpet for something. And, wondered, and she does in the credits give thanks to the Saturday Night Live people, but just to know that your job is on the line every second that you're on the stage is, I think that's a huge stress. I don't know. I think you have to be cut out for it. And she was, which she persisted at, which is great.
Were you guys surprised at how the women had to fight so hard to be able to get into the comedy? I didn't know that. I was taken back by that. I didn't realize that in comedy, because you don't hear about that in most other parts of acting, but in comedy, it's like it was a huge thing that, So.
You know what, Ellen DeGeneres, I'm taping all of her shows. It's her final season, but she's showing flashbacks from earlier routines that she did at the very beginning. And again, it's that, how do you know that? I mean, the audience was killing themselves laughing on Friday when she showed this thing about her return. It was a return skit she did on working in the cubicle, people in cubicles and on floors. And she's like over the lid of the cubicle, bothering the person working next to her who can't get a thing done because she's interrupting her. But the whole audience was in hysterics. And that was from 2002, I think. It's like really, really right back in season 1 or 2. And she was commenting on it. She said, I can't even believe people still laugh at that because I felt like a complete idiot doing it. And I didn't know what the response was going to be. And however many years later, people are still killing themselves. So I think it's a tough gig. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to be.
But that kind of stuff, like you're saying, is stuff that people were very much related to at the time, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can relate to. If you worked in one of those places where there's cubicles, you can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of what this whole thing is about. The things that made me laugh the most were the things I could relate to. you know,
Yes.
when I was going through it. All right. What
Well,
made
you-
you stop and think?
I was going to just say the technicality of comedy, like it always looks as if it's not rehearsed and it's not scripted and it's not blocked and it's not, you know, but you know, for them to arrive at 5 a.m. to rehearse Saturday Night Live, Saturday after Saturday, week after week, and the technicalities of it, I think that's what Bud might have found a little boring in the second half, because she did really justify the trade, right? But that astounded me, because I always thought it was more not slapstick but more spontaneous.
Mhm. Yeah,
Improv,
improvisation, or
yeah.
whatever they call improv. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You kind of get that impression because it sounds like that the way they do it, right? So,
Yeah,
well,
I was just gonna add one thing on there. In the past, people have said that women are not funny, and you know, you really don't need two women in one scene, because you know they're just kind of minor characters. But Tina Fey and you know Jane Curtin and Gilda Radner, they broke the mold. And I know they had problems with John Belushi, because he was a firm believer in that women not funny. But anyway, I just wanted to say that.
yeah,
Great
that's part of
segue
it.
into the Academy Awards, though, because it's 3 women comedians doing the Academy Awards on Sunday.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting.
What
Sorry.
else? There was when she talked about using my gay friends as props, going through that. Anybody that make you stop and think about that at all, or do you know what I'm talking about? You want me to read some of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me pull it up here. I've got it on my. It was when she was acting in that theater that she did when she was a child, right? And she said after she'd gone through the second season, she was having issues with one of the guys who was her mentor, kind of Sean, that he was getting involved with somebody else, you know, rather than just kind of hanging out there and being with her as a gay man. And she said, I had to face the fact that I'd been using my gay friends as props. They were always supposed to be funny and entertain me and praise me and listen to my problems. And their life was supposed to be a secret that no one wanted to hear about. I wanted them to stay in the half closet. And she had to wrestle with that. Does that bring anything up for anybody else?
I think for me, that's one of the things that really jumped out of the book for me, because the relationships between gay men and straight women have always been very important relationships, first of all, for both. And they have always been very complicated relationships because there's a line that you can't cross in there about romance. And sometimes that really complicates those relationships. I'm going to use a very pejorative term here. You know, when I first came out, the term fag hag was a very big term. And it was like every gay man had a fag hag, had a straight woman, you know, who was like his beard, you know, that he would use her to pass, you know, as straight, and she would use him not to have to deal with straight men, you know, who were clods and people that, you know, just didn't want to deal with. So this has always been a very, very complicated relationship between gay men and straight women. And I thought that this was one of the places in the book where she was really vulnerable, you know, when she talked about the fact that she suddenly realized that she was using the gay men in her life, for a certain purpose. And if the gay men in her life were honest, they would have admitted that they were using her too, because it is a relationship, in which the two tend to use each other. And, I've watched this for almost 50 years now since I've been out. I've watched these relationships. I've always wanted to write a book with the title, The Things Straight Women Want Straight Men to Learn from Gay Men, because so many straight women have told me, if I could just meet a straight man, who has the characteristics of a gay man, except that he's heterosexual, then he would be the perfect man. And so I think she was acknowledging that complexity of those relationships. And many of us have had those. I certainly have, had those relationships between straight women and gay men. And I felt that was one of the places in the book where she was just really kind of brutally honest in admitting that she came to that awareness about herself.
Yeah. I want to hear a little more about that. And I'm wondering if you can, or Kevin or Bud, have any stories to tell about that kind of thing. Did you have a beard, a fag hag?
I wouldn't say that I had a beard so much. For me, it wasn't so much a conscious decision to have a woman in my life to hide. But I definitely had women who were really close, and some people would consider them fag hags. The challenge always came to when, for whatever reason, it got murky in the relationship, and there was an expectation of, oh, she thinks I'm going to change, or she thinks she can change me, or there was like a jealousy that came up, and suddenly, if I started dating somebody, there would be issues in our friendship.
Yeah.
That's where it got difficult. And a lesson in loving your friend through their difficulties and finding ways to continue that relationship with somebody without being completely exhausted over because I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship where it's one-sided, right? Where someone is interested in you sexually, but you're not, you just want to continue as a friend, and they're constantly making references or innuendo, or there's a sense of entitlement that they're there, that you're feeling. It's really hard to navigate those and to constantly push against that, because some people who find themselves in these relationships are so desperate for human contact, human relation, that they're willing to that they see an opening and they go for it. And then there's like, as the person who's being objectified, the best way to put it, you sense you got to keep the boundaries so tightly solid. You can't let your act down or your guard down, and if you do, then it makes it all awkward again. Mm-hmm. So for as much as it can be a mutually beneficial relationship on both sides, it also could be a mutually exhausting and destructive and toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Good.
And what you just talked about,
Kevin, yes.
Kevin, yeah, just what you talked about is exactly what she said. Is she got jealous and upset that when Sean, one of her close, friends at the time, started to want to date somebody, that's not supposed to happen, right?
No, the people that are closest to you they're supposed to be so happy for you. Look, you found somebody. I love you. Amazing. Go make this beautiful life. And the opposite happens. And as on the side of that, where that's happened to, it's really defeating. It's deflating. It's like, okay, now this is even worse. How do I balance my relationship and my friendship? And how are they going to be in the same room? Is there going to be fireworks? Do I have to navigate? It's just, it makes it even more complicated. So, sure. And this just adds on to the toxicity. And I think this is where a lot of really good friendships get completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Is in that.
Yeah.
Right.
Carol, I just have a question with regards to this particular conversation. When I read that section, I read it as she was reflecting on the situation as opposed to intentionally in the moment abusing a situation. To me, it was more reflective. She was looking back on periods of her life and realizing that maybe it might have been better to do things differently. So my sense was that there was nothing intentionally hurtful about her behavior, but I'm interested in what others are thinking.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it did trigger it for sure. It triggered her reflection, right? Yeah.
I would argue that that's probably the sense that most women who find themselves in that relationship, how they are. I don't think they're intentional, really.
Right.
I think it's out of there's history there. There's hurt. There's something missing in their life. They're trying to make up for something. Sometimes they're trying to hide. It's kind of like when a young gay man before he comes out balloons up to be really heavy to protect himself. Well, it's really easy to explain why you don't have a girlfriend is when you're 350 pounds and you're 5'5", right?
Yeah.
But when they come out of the closet, a lot of times you see guys, the weight just goes, just drops right off, right? Because they have this sense of freedom. So it's not that I don't think that she did anything intentional, and I don't think most are intentional in terms of, well, I'm going to get out, I'm going to hurt this guy. He doesn't deserve to have a relationship. It's just they act out of brokenness.
But she was
Yeah, there's a
very,
whole element here of unrequited love, which can, as you know, if anybody's ever experienced it, the idea that you are extremely attracted to another person who's not attracted to you, you will do almost anything to be close to them and involved with them in some way. When I met Tom, he was living with as a roommate and very close friend, a young woman, a beautiful young woman, highly accomplished, wonderful in every way. And I moved in with the two of them. And the three of us lived together for almost 3 years, in this almost just really kind of perfect relationship. And then when Tom and I decided to move from Chicago to California, it became apparent that in all of this time, she was in love with Tom, had always been in love with Tom, and thought she was going to get Tom in the long run. And so this relationship, which was really, I loved her. It was just a wonderful relationship. But then when Tom announced that we were moving to California, she became really irrational. And she did a long interview with a newspaper in Chicago, the Chicago Sun-Times, in which she talked about living with two gay men, and she outed Tom in that article, which was in 1975 was a very, very dangerous situation for him, because he had a very responsible job in the Sears Tower with Sears at the time. And so everything changed in that moment. It's what you were just talking about, Kevin, that all of this was somehow brewing in the background all of this time, but it did not manifest, until this moment when she realized that we were about to move to California and she was not going to have Tom after all.
right.
Were you and Tom a couple while you were all living together?
Yes,
Yeah.
we were. Yes. And
Who
she
that?
even nominally, she supported us. She totally supported us as a couple, and it was this relationship where Tom and I were a couple, and she lived with us, and we all supported each other, you know, but there was this other dynamic going on, which honestly we just didn't know about until, you know, those last few months when she suddenly realized we were about to move, you know, and she wouldn't have Tom anymore. And it became really, really difficult and really tragic. And the sadness of it, of course, is that it broke both of our relationships with her, you know, and in such a way that we've not had any kind of relationship with her since.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very sad.
That's sad.
And this, you're right, Glenda, her, you know, Tina Fey's thing was not that she was in love with one of these guys. It was that it just triggered her feelings that, wow, I've been using these folks because they're supposed to be just there for me, you know? And all of a sudden I had come to the place where they have lives and they're real people. Excuse me. And they have to go find their own lives and stuff. And I can't just keep them halfway in the closet and just keep them as my, you know, people that I can just use and, you know, they take care of me. Right. So even that was a difference for her, even if it wasn't a relationship or unrequited love, you know, it was one of those kind of things. So, anybody else, Bud? Did you want to share something?
Well, I just realized that my high school girlfriend was really my beard. I wasn't out in high school, but she was my beard because I was so insecure and bullied, but she was popular. And as long as I was with her, no one was going to screw with me and bully me. So basically, you know, she was my beard. And when I finally came out to my mother in my 30s, she said, well, what about Wendy? You know, she thought, you know, we were an item. I said, well, we kind of were, but I was gay. And then another couple of girls that she had met, you know, in my 20s, well, what about them? I said, you know, friends, you know, so she couldn't understand it. But it was all, you know, it was all mom's fault, you know, that I became what I became. So,
well, who couldn't love you, Bud?
Yeah.
Come on. What else? Anything else come up for folks around this or something else?
Yeah, you know, this is a key thing. The manager, the supervisor, the gosh, what's the word? No, it's just that like at 30 Rock, she people working for her, and she was their manager. And she had mentioned that a lot of times she'll get questions from people like, gee, isn't it really hard for you to work and manage all? And just because she's a woman, they question the fact that she's managing these people. She given like with Trump, this was before he was president, but she said, you know, people wouldn't go up to Donald Trump and say, oh, gee, Mr. Trump, is it really hard to manage all those people? You know, I mean, just that thing of capable of being managers.
Yeah. She really had a way of kind of encouraging the feminist agenda, so to speak, in her comedy, right? Or in the way she spoke about that. Saying, hey, wait a minute, take a look at this, what you're saying. You wouldn't say that to a man. That's, you know, I mean, it was, she really kind of used those situations and turned it around to make that point, you know. It was, I noticed that as well. Hmm. What else? A book you'd recommend to your friends?
Definitely.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. Good. Joe's got Tina Fey right behind her. She just, she adores her.
Yeah, how did she do that? How did she do that?
I adjusted my background. I figured it was thematic tonight. So yeah. One thing when listening to all y'all, I mean, we obviously, when we do these books, we read it, we talk about them a couple nights a week at dinner. And the thing when something that came up a lot, I think both for our dinner conversation, is the profanity. And someone brought up Ellen DeGeneres, how Ellen is just so doggone funny. And I remember when Ellen went out on the road, she chose to not use any profanity. And Cheryl, you and I saw her one time in Colorado Springs. And, back in the day of Robin Williams and some really serious profanity from comedians, I'm like, I wonder if I could go for 2 hours on stage without cussing. It's become, just as, not that I'm like crazy, but I wondered. And Ellen just said, that's not who I'm going to be. And I'm going to be a woman in comedy, one of the best on the planet. And my mother can sit in front of me every night, which she often did. Right. And I just wonder if that's one last little bit of conversation. I know we're closing up on the hour here, but it always is. And I'll tell you why. As a Marine, when I went into the Marine Corps, I was a Christian. And, cursing was just not part of the lexicon. It was not part of what we did. And yet, I'll never forget one night my roommate coming home in tears as a female drill sergeant. I mean, she was here I go cussing, badass, right? But what she said was, unless I use those words, they don't listen to me and they don't respect me.
Oh.
And we were having, as becoming Christians and going to MCC every week, closeted, because you couldn't go to MCC church and be in the Marine Corps and be lesbians. But when I came home from the Marine Corps, recognizing there's language Marines understand. And then I went into seminary. I'll never forget washing the dishes one night. My mom's like, "Are you sure you're going to be able to get a job?" And I know it was 10 years of my language, because it becomes part of who you are and how you talk, So I just wonder if that struck any of you, and I'll just leave it at that.
Joe, one of the things that the book brought back to me is that there are many different kinds of comedy, many different styles. There's shock comedy, and there's slapstick, and there's kind of intelligent stuff. And I didn't really know very much about Tina Fey at all before I read this book. I wasn't like a fan or anything. And I found her comedy to sort of be a blend of shock comedy and slapstick comedy with an overlay of intelligence, which is kind of strange, but I'll tell you, and we're all adults here, if you say motherfucker in certain contexts, it's funny because it's shock and unexpected. But if you say it over and over again, then it's not funny anymore. And you start asking, why do you have to do that? And I did occasionally feel that in this book. It was like, why do you need to do that so much? I personally thought that the most brilliant comedy and my favorite part of this book were reading the transcripts of the Saturday Night Live stuff when she was playing Sarah Palin and Amy Poehler was Hillary Clinton. I've never been a Saturday Night Live person, and I didn't hear a lot of that stuff. And that's when I just laughed out loud.
Yeah.
You know, at this stuff. And there was an intelligence in all of that was just brilliant. You know, it just blew my mind with brilliance. And there were other times in the book where I felt like she was going for a cheap laugh,
Oh,
by using profanity, or something. And so I just appreciated that comedy that was just so smart. It just grabbed me. So anyway, it reminded me there's so many different kinds of comedy. And some people are really turned on by slapstick and other people by other kinds. And I just loved that dialogical stuff from Saturday Night Live. I just thought that was the funniest stuff I've ever read.
But I think, Ken, I think your point is well taken, because the reason she has been so successful is because she is so intelligent.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Clearly. Yeah. I watched her in a movie last week. In a totally dramatic role. Nothing funny about it at all. The movie is called Admissions. Have any of you seen this movie?
Not
She
yet.
plays the admissions
No.
officer at Princeton University, and she's responsible for deciding which students get to come to Princeton, and she's dealing with an application from a brilliant young man who's 18 years old. And he tests off the charts for everything, but because he's so smart, teachers bore him to death. And so his grades are not good and so forth. She's trying to figure out how to get, and in the process of this, she discovers that he is her son that she gave up for adoption when she was in high school.
Oh,
And it's-
Wow, what a story.
Well, you just
It
did a
is a-
very good advertisement for that movie.
I'll be watching that one.
It's a totally dramatic role, and she is amazing in it. And so, yeah,
Thanks
she's
for sharing.
obviously a very intelligent person and a very gifted person. Yeah, beyond just slapstick.
There's another movie she's in. She plays a journalist in the Middle East, and she's embedded with the U.S. Army there. I think it was great. It's a wonderful movie, and it's a serious role. I think the movie is called TF. But anyway, yeah, you can Google it. It's an excellent movie.
Further to what Joby was talking about when it comes to women in comedy, I was when you watch some modern comedians, they'll often talk about their struggles with working their way up in the system and comparing themselves to what men's experiences are like. There's a comedian, her name is Ali Wong. She's really crass. She's definitely into shock. I kind of like her a lot. And she does swear a lot, and she uses a lot of vulgarity in her comedy. During Ellen's time, when she was on stage, that wouldn't have been allowed. That wouldn't have been accepted. She wouldn't have risen up. There's an expectation that women needed to have a certain sort of comportment, certain sense of they need to act a certain way. And if they act in any other way, well, then they're just slutty, or they're crass, or they're the other. Well, meanwhile, you've got like Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor F-bombing all over the place, telling stories about getting laid and everything else. And everyone just laughs and it's fine. And they made their way up the ranks. A woman back then would not have been able to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of refreshing to see a woman, and I think Tina Fey, the reason why she was successful in the markets that she did is she did have that intelligence and the ability to get a grasp on multiple different styles of comedy. So she was perfect for her role as Saturday Night Live and head writer, and also inspiring other people's careers and supporting other people's careers, because she could relate to all the various different kinds of comedy. And then there are people like like Ali Wong, who I really appreciate, because it's like, no, you know what? I'm a woman. Just because I was born with different parts doesn't mean that I'm unable to experience the world in the same way as you are, Mr. Pryor or Mr. Murphy, or who or what's his name from talk radio, Howard Stern. There's and I have to give it up to them. I actually give them even slightly more respect, because they're like going into a frontier that it's uncharted for most women.
Yeah. And that's the key there, Kevin, is that I think what Joby was alluding to in the Marine Corps, you know, you wouldn't have been accepted if you didn't use some of that language. That could have been part of what she was, you know, she came up with the guys, and she had to be kind of like with the guys or like the guys in order to be, you know, accepted.
In order to be accepted, she had to emasculate, not emasculate, emasculinate herself, if that's a word.
Right.
And women in live arts have had to do the opposite. They've had to over feminize themselves. Even look at the way that Rosie O'Donnell dressed when she originally did comedy, right? She was slightly edgy, but she still looked really feminine. Katie Lang, when she started, right, and where she is now, gender's messed up in our society. We all know that, and it's nice to see these people that are like pushing through.
Yeah.
I think one of her main talents was that she knew she was intelligent enough to know how to play to her audience.
Yes.
She would know what the audience could handle or what they were used to or whatever, and was able to play it whatever she thought would be best in that situation.
Yes.
And what a challenge that is, Janice, to always be
I think so.
working that right in your head. Is
absolutely.
Yeah. What a
that kind of puts her above a lot of comics in my way of thinking, because she didn't take on just one role. She was able to be accepted in comedic in so many different arenas, you know.
Yeah. What a great conversation. This has circled around a lot tonight. Cheryl, can I finish this up?
Yeah, that was the last point I wanted to make. I just think, you know, and Kristen, you said it too. It's the environment. You know, if you're with people that's what goes on, then you tend to go to that space so that you're like them, or you get along with them, or they, you know, you can fit in, right? And if they don't do that, you're like, oh my God, I better back off here and be careful about the way I'm talking, you know? So Joby had to make that, it was quite the line she had to traverse back and forth between being a Marine and being a pastor, you know, back and forth. And I recall, I mean, I was in the Air Force, so I wasn't in the Marine Corps, but there were some of the same kinds of things I did when I was working with fighter pilots, you know. You just played the game a little bit in order to be able to do your job well and have those kind of relationships that allowed you to do what you were supposed to be doing with them, you know. So yeah, it does work that way. But yes, Joby, I think we've probably gone through most of the time, and Tina Fey's holding her face up there like this and saying, can't you guys be done now? Come on.
It's a man's hand up against her face.
Do you think it's Alex's hand?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I loved the cover, actually. I thought the cover was really brilliant.
Cheryl, do you have one more thing, or you're tossing it back to me, hon?
No, I'm tossing it back to you. Go for it.
Tossing it back to me. I'm gonna just
thank you guys. I just want to say thank you though to everyone. That was quite fun to do that. So
yeah,
thank
you. And I appreciate, you know, you look at the stack of books you all have read, you know, on the right hand side of the slide, and there are so many different stories and so many different conversations we had. So I was really looking forward to tonight and seeing what you'd come up with, and of course you did not disappoint. April 26th, really different again. We were just talking dinner about The Martian, a great movie, same idea with this astronaut who has just, let's just say, a lot on his shoulders. But Project Hail Mary for next month. So toss it out there and see if you've got a friend who would love to come and join us. And next week, we are back into our Lenten mind frame. So I'm hoping those of you who are part of our Lenten journey are doing that homework. You know, you're thinking through this entire time of Lent, taking on that light. Who am I seeing light through? Who am I being light to? Right. And we didn't get up like Saturday Night Live at 5 o'clock in the morning to rehearse our stories. But let me tell you what, we knew what was going to happen when Cheryl shared with Chaplain Pruitt. And we know a little bit about what's coming next week with Ken, with Saints of Courage. And you're going to want to hear these stories. And we again encourage you to bring some stories of your own, of Saints of Courage, and really get ready for the 5th Sharing Your Saints. We'd love some pictures. We'd love some stories. And then if you have been to one of our Seder dinners, please come back. If you have never been to Seder dinner, this is an experience. So I just wanted to make sure you're all lined up for those times with us. And we're going to get together this week and chat about what's next, what's coming after this Lenten journey. So be blessed, be safe, stay out of the wind, the rain, the hail, and anything twisting in the sky. Just step away. Okay. Be safe.
And Carol, thank you so much for recommending this book. Thank you.
Oh,
Absolutely. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
All right. From me and Tina, good night, y'all.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thanks to everybody. Thank you, Cheryl.
Night, night. You're welcome.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
honey.
Thank you.
Thank you.